the three faculty who are presenting today, who are integrating sustainable minds into curriculum in three very different kinds of programs. This is the 9th in our series of educational webcasts featuring educators from all over the world in teaching in different disciplines. You know, we named the series Creating Knowledge Workers for the Greener Product Marketplace because at the end of the day, it's all about preparing students to go out into the world and do business in a new way. And what we've seen is that schools will attract the students who are interested in going out into industry. And actually, I think each of the faculty will touch on that point. And manufacturers will go look at those schools to recruit students into those businesses who care about recruiting students who can execute. So in today's presentation, what you're going to hear about is three faculty and several students talking about how they're integrating life cycle thinking and using tools like Sustainable Minds into the curriculum to teach students how to think differently and how to make different kinds of decisions in the design and manufacture of products. And you'll see from different curriculum, different schools, and each faculty member having very different backgrounds. Just a little bit about Sustainable Minds software, as there are folks who are on the call who may not be familiar with it. Sustainable Minds is eco-concept modeling software with real-time life cycle assessment results. The primary purpose or the primary use case for using Sustainable Minds is to benchmark a product, an existing product, a product concept, the very first thing you model, and then to be able to rapidly create additional concepts or competing concepts to compare where in the product's life cycle the greatest impacts are occurring and what's causing those impacts. So Sustainable Minds delivers quantified estimates of environmental performance, again, designed for non-life cycle scientists to use in product development. You're going to hear some very interesting stories today about not only product design and product development, but Sustainable Minds being used in R&D to support rapid decision making. And we've been really excited to see the kind of adoption globally. While Sustainable Minds is technical software for business use, its integration into curriculum is just a great demonstration of how ease of use makes it accessible and usable really at any stage of knowledge and a variety of use cases. We are a mission-based company. Our mission is to operationalize environmental performance into mainstream product development and manufacturing. We do that by bringing together eco-concept modeling and life cycle assessment to measure and then in real time interpreting those results into environmental impacts. If you just thought differently and designed differently and didn't measure, you wouldn't know if the designs were making any kind of meaningful improvement. And if you only did LCA without teaching people to think differently, you'd have data but not necessarily any meaningful improvement. And so by bringing those two processes together, life cycle thinking and life cycle assessment, there's a real opportunity to create incredibly greener products. So moving forward, what we've seen in the last 6 years since we started Sustainable Minds is that manufacturers are being driven by a broad range of drivers, resource depletion and competition for natural resources, regulation, supply chain risk management, and then from a competitive standpoint, building brands that convey a meaningful commitment to creating products with better environmental performance, and then the real opportunity for creating new products, innovative new products that will be differentiated in the marketplace and will drive new revenues and new customers. All of these drivers advocate for the need and the desire to not only design greener products, but to be able to market those credibly greener products. And that demand for better designed products should be able to create that preference, which turns into a continuous improvement loop, which should create the systems within an organization to design greener products, make greener products, market them credibly, and take that data, drive it back into the design process, and continuously design and improve. So at the end of the day, it's all about making greener product decisions throughout the design and marketing cycles. Now, the reason we created Sustainable Minds, which is a simplified life cycle assessment screening application, was we realized that manufacturers needed the ability to make trade-off decisions very early in concept design, rather than getting all the way through to physical prototypes or detailed design before being able to make trade-off decisions between the other criteria that exist today in product development. And you can see through this diagram that the critical decisions that get made in early stage product development, like material choice, energy requirements, recyclability, the lifetime of the product, also define the environmental performance. So if you can't make those trade-off decisions early on, that environmental performance is locked in, and waiting till later to evaluate it means cost and time. Within the Sustainable Minds application and within the Learning Center, there's considerable content and support to drive life cycle thinking and to think about the strategies that can be brought to bear to improve the environmental performance in each stage of the product's life cycle, and when that's combined with the ISO process for life cycle assessment upon which Sustainable Minds is built, you get technical, credible information, and this actually shows how a bill of materials translates into environmental impacts from all of the life cycle stage inputs being reduced to its chemical composition, those chemicals being applied to the impact categories, all of which affect one or more types of damage either to human health or to the built environment. And so the way that we've made life cycle assessment simplified for non-LCA experts is to have created our single figure score methodology. We use Tracy from the EPA, we use normalization and weighting schema from NIST, and in our single figure impact factors, all of the 10 Tracy impact categories of ecological damage, human health damage, and resource depletion are factored into the single figure score, but we also pull out the global warming score and turn that into carbon equivalents so that you can do overall impact assessments as well as carbon footprinting. We use EcoInvent and other public data sources as our underlying data set, but we also make it possible for organizations to request data and add it to the data set. It's easy to download the data request form, request data. It can either be generic data from other public data sets, or for manufacturers looking to add your own supplier-specific data or your primary data. We work with you to acquire that data or create proxies and add it to the data set. You can easily see the data that's already in Sustainable Minds through our data browser. And as I mentioned before, we have a very extensive learning center where the user's guide, and which really can support a project team or students fundamentally understand the process for going through Sustainable Minds life cycle assessment, exploring eco-design strategies. There's a significant section on the methodology. The Learning Center is the equivalent of about a 150-page textbook on eco-design and life cycle assessment. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn things over to our guest educators to talk about how they're using Sustainable Minds in one or more of their courses and research. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Michael from St. Louis University. And each faculty will introduce themselves and talk about their schools, programs, and projects. You're welcome to contribute questions. We'll take those questions at the end of the session. Any questions that don't get answered during the session, we'll certainly follow up with you to get those things answered, put you in touch with the right folks. And so without further ado, Michael, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Again, my name is Mike Swartwout. I'm an assistant professor of aerospace and mechanical engineering at St. Louis University. I apologize up front if I seem a little raspy. It is uncharacteristically winter here in St. Louis. We're in the 20s and have snow on the ground, and that's not supposed to happen here at this time. But we'll soldier on anyway. I'm also presenting on behalf of the chair of our department, Schneider Condor, who did a lot of the early work here, and so I wanted to make sure to credit him as well. All right, so in terms of getting quickly with the bios here, Dr. Condor is the chair of the department, and he is the primary teacher in our sustainability and product design sequence. I am an assistant professor, and I'm responsible for our new undergraduate freshman engineering course, and so I'm involved in incorporating that at the freshman year. I also come from a very different direction. I have been working mostly in spacecraft design, and so it's nice for me to branch out. So just quickly, St. Louis University is the College of Engineering. It's called Parks College, named after our founder. In fact, we are the first licensed aviation school in the country. We have FAA license number 1. Since then, we have expanded to cover a wide range of engineering disciplines. We're a fairly small school, about 700 undergraduate students. About half of them are aerospace and mechanical engineering majors, which means, again, about half of our students are at least entering into the sequence that I'm going to talk to you about today. So mainly what we're doing is we've got 3 courses here that we're using the Sustainable Minds and the life cycle analysis. The freshman year, MENG, Mechanical Engineering 101, a sophomore level design course, MENG 200, and then a senior elective, and I will quickly talk about each one of those as I go through here. So in 101, this is again a required course for all of our majors, and again our aerospace take this as well. It's a class project that comes near the end of the semester, about 3 weeks in length, and fairly small teams that are working on this. And as I said there, for the pilot program, this is our first semester doing it. We're just using one of the sections, so just 24 students are working on this. And what we're doing is we're taking an existing activity, which is a toaster teardown, to teach them the design process, to encourage curiosity, have them take apart a toaster, see how it works, see how the mechanisms are there, the electrical, how that also merges with the ideas of design. But then, so on one day they take it apart, understand all the functions, how it works, why the decisions are made to make a toaster the way it is. Then we say, now that you've taken it all apart, let's go back and look at each of these pieces and do an environmental impact to sustainability analysis. And so they can assess the life cycle cost. So what we're doing is having them go look at the materials, research some of the manufacturing, and again come up with an idea of the costs involved here. At this point, being at the freshman level, what we're emphasizing is the process of using the application, asking the questions in terms of what is the true cost of building and producing something. And then also there is a particular question here in terms of what could they do in terms of what are the drivers, what are the things that are having the most impact, as Terry was talking about with that total score. That prepares them for their sophomore level course, which again all of the mechanical engineering majors take. Introduction to Design and Manufacturing, and this is a rather significant class project there. So in this one, that's more open-ended, and so we're asking them to approach a design problem, and they're going to be using the life cycle analysis as one element of the design process. So they have a small amount of money for materials, and what they're being asked to do, or what they've done in the past, and we do cycle through several different projects, is a solar oven. And the idea here is that from a design perspective, they want this to be useful and used, and so what each team has to do is identify a region in the world where they're going to for which they're producing their oven, but also a nonprofit, some organization which would know the area, would know the people, would be able to participate there. And so they have to do some research in terms of what are the actual needs in that area, and who's working to meet those needs. We have them doing understanding the culture. I'll talk about that in a little bit here, but basically, to the extent that they can do from St. Louis, they go to a local restaurant to understand the culinary habits, what sorts of foods are cooked, how they're prepared, how they're eaten. So again, they can do a better job of truly assessing the needs and then come up with a design that meets them. They do design a prototype, test it out, and then again, using the life cycle analysis can evaluate the environmental impact here. So again, as we said, solar oven, I just talked about this, but in terms of the pieces here, again, especially understanding what would it take for this oven to be adopted. So rather than just, again, coming with this great design and dropping it in and expecting it to be widely loved, really understanding the culture and in terms of how this would impact it and how it could be beneficial. Again, from both a society perspective and a cooking habit perspective. Now, from what we would think of as design, but as we know is just one aspect of design, is now to go into the prototyping, come up with different concepts, evaluate them through trade studies, and implement them into an actual prototype cooker. So there's an iterative process. They are doing modifications. They are trying to do everything related to what it would take to produce this. So from the evaluation, the assessment part that comes at the end, they're looking at the business model in terms of what it would cost to produce it, how they could sustain that from an economic standpoint, but then they're also looking at the environmental impact. For this class, we had them focusing on carbon footprint within the impact factors of life cycle analysis. They're using the Sustainable Minds software to study the entire environmental impact. And here again, they're looking for ways to improve their response. So this was one example in terms of the various pieces that they're doing. Again, these are solar cookers, and so it's just mainly reflective surface and some box material to hold it on. They have to look at how well does it heat up, and then what sorts of pieces are going in here. So again, there's a quick screenshot of the impact of different categories, how each of those pieces are affecting there. And again, some of the things that can be pointed out in terms of what they're doing to human health, in terms of human toxicity, but also in terms of the ecotoxicity and understanding for them in terms of what toxicity is and how it impacts different parts of the problem. That's something that the students wouldn't normally consider. So we can have them broaden their horizons a bit. So in terms of one student's reflection on this, the team said their eyes have not only been open to the many issues in the world that engineers must solve, but also our team's thought process has changed to be more of a global, innovative, and sustainable mindset. It's a really popular program among our sophomores. So at the senior elective and also master's degree students take this. There's an Innovation, Creativity, and Sustainability course. And again, this was a large project. that takes up a significant function of the time and in a large part of the grade. So in this particular project, the idea is to build on what the students have been doing in the freshman and sophomore years, and in fact to come back to the toaster. We like the idea of connecting things that they've done to seeing it again. Now that they're seniors and they have the greater technical knowledge, we can ask more of them and they can do more in the project. So here, the idea is to go back to the toaster and reassess it. Can you do life cycle assessment to adjust the design of the toaster? So here, this is really using the software front and center to understand the environmental impact and adjust the design accordingly. So in terms of the approach here is take an existing toaster, and again, really now redoing what they will have done in their freshman year at a higher level to assess the life cycle impact, understanding the customer needs. So again, related to what they did in their sophomore year, figure out a toaster, a particular market that would make use of a toaster, and try to tune their design to those needs. And then in terms of the student outcomes, so they had to create a model, and they also had to look at the way of presenting this to potential investors in terms of raising support for this. And so they had to understand who their target audience would be, why people would want to pay for this, what sorts of groups would want to invest in this sort of toaster idea. And so in the upper right, you can see their sales pitch promotion. You could see in the lower right their their prototyping model, where it actually did have to toast. And then at the bottom is looking at the score. And one of the things that it was, I think, somewhat disappointing for the students, but also important to realize is, as you see, the two different scores are not that different from the original toaster to their design. And this was part of the challenge for them to realize that simply focusing on one effort did, in fact, had potentially not paradoxical, but from a design perspective, improving one area led to reduced performance in other areas, and they can identify that they can't simply focus on one thing. And so it was a useful lesson for the students. The other one in terms of is that maybe the toaster isn't such a bad idea in terms of, from a toasting function, is already decent in terms of its sustainability score. So again, just looking at that more closely, this was a closer look. And so you can see in terms of the different parts, and again, what I want to highlight is there was a big push for the ecotoxicity, but notice that it suddenly changed in terms of human toxicity. So changing their materials where they were focused, sorry for my jumping mouse, around here at that 55 score, they're really trying to bring that down. And they did, but it came at the cost of other elements. And so for them, it was that trade-off study and recognizing, you push one end and sometimes something comes out the other end that you didn't expect. Was a really good lesson for our students. So again here, what we have found at St. Louis University is we like using this as a complementary part of our design sequence. It's open-ended enough that our students can look at a wide range of design problems, but they can come up with an assessment, a way of assessing that from an environmental, from a sustainability standpoint. And again, for us, the idea that green development can mean lots of things to lots of people. So the idea of having a single score, a metric that they can work towards is extremely helpful for especially the engineering mindset in terms of optimizing the design. So having that approach and the broadness of it has been extremely helpful for our students. Again, for us as faculty, we enjoy having that tool that we can use, we can rely on, and allow our students to really run with their design. So thank you for your time.
Michael. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Jay Beeks from Marylhurst to talk about how they're integrating sustainable minds into Marylhurst distance learning MBA program. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, good afternoon. This is Jay Beeks, and as was just stated, I'm from Marylhurst University in Portland, Oregon, and I'll be discussing the use of sustainable minds as part of our sustainable MBA program. Most of my background has been in science and engineering and various working environments, and I've only reintroduced myself into the teaching environment in the last couple of years. A lot of project background and working experience, but the education environment for me, at least as a faculty, is fairly new. It's been in the last couple of years. And so I'm being introduced to Sustainable Minds at the same time as the students are, and it's very much of a learning process for me as well. And I actually learn quite a bit from each one of the projects that are produced by these students, and I end up asking them about as many questions as they end up asking me. So about the school and the program here at Marylhurst University, Marylhurst was first established in 1893. It's a Catholic liberal arts university in Lake Oswego, Oregon, just a few miles south of Portland. It was originally founded by the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary, and it's one of the oldest schools in Oregon. We have about 2,000 students total at Marylhurst, combined undergraduate and graduate students. So the class that I'm teaching is SUS 500. It's the Introduction to Sustainability, or Principles of Sustainability, and it is the first course the students take as part of a sustainable MBA program. Marylhurst has quite a few MBA programs, and in the sustainability aspect, we have 4 programs. One of them is renewable energy, another one is in food processing, food agriculture, another one is in development, and the last sustainable MBA program we have is in information technology. These courses are offered several times a year. And again, this one that I'm teaching is Principles of Sustainability, and it is the first course the students take when they come into this MBA program. So what we've created here in this course is a team project using Sustainable Minds, and we develop a reference concept. We establish alternatives. So we ask the students to look at 4 different designs of a particular product. Let's say they're going to be building a chair or a table or a floor system. We ask them to look at 4 different design concepts for each one of those. Typically, a team of students will get together. They'll pick one, say a table. They'll come up with 4 different design concepts, and they go through a complete analysis, and then we ask them to come up with a final report and to tell us which and why of those 4 concepts is the most sustainable. So again, examples are tables, chairs, garbage cans, floor covering, casual seating, and so let's say they're building a table, they would look at options such as glass, wood, metal, plastic, and so on. So the teams produce reports using Sustainable Minds, similar to these that are shown above, and we ask them to take the information from SM, produce a report. Typically they'll put together some spreadsheet attachments. It's a fairly comprehensive report. It's about a 10-page report that we require at the end of the class, and with tables and graphs as necessary, but something that gives us a complete explanation as to why a particular product was superior to the others in terms of sustainability. And this challenges these groups in several ways. For the first challenge that they run up against is that it requires group thinking, a lot of collaboration. They do have to pick a leader, and the leader ends up taking an important role with these groups. Everybody in the group gets the same grade, so that's part of the challenge. And I think some of the other challenges are that Sustainable Minds has a pretty comprehensive data set, but it doesn't have all the data that the students may need. So this forces the students to either contact Sustainable Minds and ask them to incorporate more data on a specific product. Let's say they're producing a bamboo floor and they want to have some alternative methods of producing bamboo floor, different chemicals used for the production. They can contact Sustainable Minds and ask them to incorporate a certain data set that they've been able to find as part of the public domain. If that is not something they can do within a time frame, then they have to make some assumptions and some estimates, which is actually part of the challenge, and we find that to be a good development process for students that are going into the business world. And the other thing that happens is the students will end up with some surprising results. For example, one of the teams recently came up with the idea that a glass floor was superior to a bamboo floor. And that surprised me, but it had a lot to do with just the processing and the multiple steps that goes into the production of a bamboo floor. And we all thought that bamboo floor would come out ahead of wood, for example, because you can grow bamboo in about 5 years, whereas with most wood products, it's 20 to 30 years for the growth cycle. But surprising to all of us, the glass flooring ended up coming out on top and was considered to be the most sustainable of the flooring options that they looked at. So at the end of the course, we've asked the students to give us some reflections, and I've got dozens of reflections, but I've just taken a few here that are, I think, good examples, and I'll read through a few of these as time allows. So the first one is, one part of the LCA that really surprised me was the amount of energy associated with the actual manufacturing of the chair itself. And this group was looking at plastic and aluminum chairs. Another one is that with our project, we found that the process to making our materials and their final product completely changed our minds about what we thought was sustainable. So again, that gets back to, I think, the bamboo floor and the glass floor. I learned that there are a lot of steps to making even the simplest items. So this was surprising to the students that, for example, if it's a wood chair, it surprised them how many steps are involved in just making a wood chair. And the bamboo floor, again, I think there was something like 15 different steps that have to be taken in a sequential process in order to produce a bamboo floor. Another comment here was, I think an awesome way to incorporate tools like LCA into business would be to allow for products to post their LCA rating. This could reflect on a scale of 1 to 10 how impactful a product is, and maybe compare it to other leading brands of the same product. So they're thinking, I think, along the lines of the Sustainable Minds group, that it's nice to have some kind of a graduating scale of more sustainable versus less sustainable. And I've heard that comment from several different factions, that we would like to have some kind of something beyond, say, an eco label on products that we purchase. Another comment here is, another important aspect that I learned was about the end-of-life scenarios for products. The different directions that each product takes at the end of its usable life drastically affects the product's overall footprint. We all know the importance of recycling, but I personally did not understand the actual effects of the other end-of-life scenarios. A few more comments here. As a result of this exercise, I will definitely pay more attention to the entire life cycle of a product before I buy it. Our home benefited from this product, as well as I found a supplier for glass tiles and convinced my husband to have our foyer done in colored glass tiles. It will look beautiful once completed, and I can take comfort in knowing that I purchased a long-lasting product that can also be recycled over time and be truly renewable. Another comment here, the less transport and production of chemicals in more process-intensive products outweighs the damage of cutting the trees. So in this case, the group was surprised that a wood chair, for example, ended up scoring very well from a sustainability standpoint, even though it does include the process of cutting down trees, although they were able to source their trees locally, which helped with the scoring from a sustainability standpoint. And I'll just read one more comment here. It was interesting to see how each product compared to each other. In our product sustainability analysis, glass tiles was the optimum choice, hands down. It had very little impact on the planet. So some of the key learnings from this exercise, again here, the students determined that product design and development is more extensive than realized, that both material selection and material processing are important considerations, and we all found that our first assumptions were often incorrect. So again, getting back to the bamboo, we were all quite surprised that bamboo wouldn't come out on top. For the educators, for this Green MBA program, we like the idea of introducing this tool early in the program, and we find that it stimulates the learning process. It also gets the students more engaged, and it gets them excited about the idea that when they get into the working world outside of this MBA program, that they can look at things analytically, and they can take tools like this with them and be a little bit more analytical about how the company is being run. Perhaps they can make some changes at the MBA level, at the executive level, that they wouldn't be able to make at some other positions within a company. And they like the idea very much that they can be part of a sustainable organization. I think all these students are looking for green jobs. In fact, they all are working for the most part. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is an online program. And so essentially all these students are in the business world already. They're all working full-time jobs, and they managed to fit in this program in about 20 hours a week as an accelerated online program. So for the educators, we like all those things as well. We like the idea of having a practical exercise that encourages discussion. We do like the idea as well as enabling leadership and getting this group thinking exposure and just the freedom of the students to be able to use tools like this and take them into the workplace. So in summary, we find that students graduate with a specific skill set that we think is quite beneficial to them. Again, we do like that team environment. We like the systems thinking process. It's very important for executives to have that system thinking process. And we do like the idea that they're exploring other and different measurement tools that we think are essential for sustainable students. So that sums up my discussion, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay. That was really interesting. We have a number of MBA programs using sustainable minds, and everyone is really getting amazing results in terms of driving and thinking about business models, as well as just getting people who are in business involved in setting the environmental performance standards, if you will, inside of an organization to kick off product development. So that was a really relevant and useful presentation. Our third faculty member today is from Cornell University, and Dave Schneider is accompanied today by two of his students who will introduce himself and his students, and they'll pitch in as well. So Dave, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is David Schneider. I'm a member of the Systems Engineering faculty at Cornell University, and I'm joined here today with actually two of our students, Justin Horst and Michelle Lee, who will be telling you about some of their work in our project, as well as be available to answer any questions and offer the student's perspective. Now, I'll be focusing most of our talk today with regard to a project called Cornell University Sustainable Design, which is a great student project team here on campus. But let me head straight into things. So like I said, my name is Dave Schneider, and I'm really speaking as the head advisor to Cornell University Sustainable Design, also known as CUSD. On my work that I do, I actually focus a lot on student project teams overall. I have quite often over 200 students working for me on various different projects, and as you'll see, CUSD is a major part of that. I'm also involved strongly with the maker movement efforts at Cornell, and as such, we are finding that the Sustainable Minds software has been a great tool for them to consider in the products that they make as well. My work also in teaching model-based systems engineering, which as well as project leadership, creativity, and engineering, all have to do with elements of decision trade-offs quite often, and hence we've been finding Sustainable Minds to be a great tool in that. I'd also like to offer that my formal background is actually in controlled dynamics and in NP-hard computer science theory. So you may say that's a bit of a sidestep from the normal sustainability focus, but at the same point I highlight that just as kind of evidence to the fact that there are tools out there like Sustainable Minds which help you to be able to make an impact in sustainability research fairly quickly. I'd also like to add that just from my very background, I used to work for NASA for a while, and I used to be a screenwriter at Disney, but now I've found that actually the sustainability area is one of the best areas to make a significant impact. So this organization, Cornell University Sustainable Design, is run out of the Systems Engineering program here at Cornell, and actually includes students from every undergraduate college at Cornell, just to kind of give an indication as to how large and how wide sustainability has become a part of the culture of students, and particularly here at Cornell. Give a little bit of background on CUSD. They focus largely on building energy systems that this group does, and they've also done things such as being the National Solar Decathlon, where they've even been the set for Good Morning America. They built a schoolhouse in South Africa. They were featured at the Greenbelt 2012 Open Plenary Talk, and have recently been asked to be submit an article for the International Journal of Service Learning and Engineering in a special edition. And again, this organization is the largest and most popular and most diverse student project team on campus. Overall, we've been finding that Sustainable Minds has been a key element in this project, and we've been integrating Sustainable Minds not only into CUSD, but also into a number of other projects, such as a course called Innovative Product Design via Digital Manufacturing and Consumer Products Design. I'm going to be focusing today's talk largely on the CUSD work, and particularly a research project, but I'd be happy to take questions at the end with regards to any of these other projects. So the research project that I'd like to focus on is referred to as Green Building Products Metrics, and summarize the larger research goals here. It's largely an assessment of products, focusing mainly on sustainability, trying to come up with all the different kinds of areas that consumers typically have a hard time assessing or understanding on their own, sustainability being a fantastic example of that. And a large focus on our work is not actually the assessment techniques themselves, because there's a lot of people who are doing research in this area, but more about the actual customer communication. How do we actually get this information down to the level that your average consumer can find value and ease of use in that assessment? And so rather than having the focus be on high precision and detail, it's more about being able to provide truthful but still general impressions that can inform the consumer. Estimates are far better than nothing, so long as presented with accuracy, and that the amount of accuracy is clear to that, so they understand how much accuracy is involved with what's presented. And a good way to think about this might be kind of like the level of consumer reports overall. Again, trying to get to some basic general ideas for your average consumer. We're hoping largely that this work will not only meet the growing needs of consumers to have knowledge about the sustainability of their products, but also to potentially even drive consumer choice change, and with that, hopefully even manufacturer driving change. Now, to give an indication as where we currently are with this research, we're focusing largely on using it for internal decisions here at Cornell. Within CUSD, we do a number of projects with regards to building, creating brand new buildings and doing renovation projects. And as such, we do a lot of product design selection and comparison of different products that are out there. Again, we're using this largely again as an internal decision tool, but we were focusing mainly on building materials, utility equipment, home appliances, furnishings, and we've even developed baselines of comparison in these categories, and we'll be having some of the students tell you about that work in just a bit. We do have plans to introduce this work to a general audience in-store tests in the coming year, but right now, again, we're using it just for internal decision processing. And just to give you an idea of the range of the students that are involved with this, we have everywhere from freshmen to even sometimes PhD students involved in CUSD overall. Now, to give you kind of an indication of what this metric is like and some of the work that's based off of it, I'd like to start off with this slide, which basically says that if you gave a consumer two products that were exactly identical in every single way, with the exception that one of them was actually communicated as being more sustainable in a way that a consumer can understand, they would actually choose the more sustainable product, that they actually do have some interest in that. However, as we are well aware, the process of making that evaluation is quite complicated and very challenging for your average consumer to be able to understand. And if you layer on top of that all the additional elements such as cost, installation and maintenance issues, as well as the actual effects on their health, it becomes a very complicated subject to try to address. So what we're proposing is to try to be able to provide some kind of metric that might look like the following, that has both graphic and numerical representations of four key categories: cost and payback, sustainability, and obviously sustainability being a key one that we are looking at Sustainable Minds to inform the score of. Also looking at things like installation, maintenance, and better living. But again, the idea is here's a quick snapshot that could be used to give some kind of rough information to a potential consumer. Now, we're using this currently internally, and as such, we have to often pull data from various manufacturers ourselves. And so we use this kind of analogy of our metric as being also having this weather report kind of analogy, saying that, all right, if we're able to get very good data that has been third-party verified, gone through a full LCA, we'll equate that to kind of like the weather for today. It's a very accurate measurement that we can trust what that measurement is. If we have perhaps incomplete information, we might still do what rating we can, but equate it to kind of like our 5-day forecast. We recognize that that data is inaccurate, might change, but still is better than nothing. At least gives us an estimate as to what might be the general direction that something is headed in. And so that kind of sums up the way that our metric research works right now. But I'd like to hand it over to the students to actually tell a little bit more about how they're actually using it. Justin?
All right. I'm Justin Horst. I'm a member of GBMP. And Sustainable Minds is just a very useful tool for us for choosing the best materials, the best utilities, the best furnishings for the kinds of projects that CUSD does. So the rendering that you're seeing on the screen right now is of a project that's currently going on. The design for it is almost complete, and it's potentially going to be built on campus. It's the Beebe Lake redevelopment project. And we think that Sustainable Minds could be used to compare the different building materials, the different furnishings that could potentially be put inside of this building, and choose the best and most sustainable options. So the first step to doing something like this is to take what information we can get on the different products and materials and plug it into Sustainable Minds for a kind of a product analysis. This gives us a millipoint score as well as other types of information that we can use to objectively judge and compare and choose between all the different products that we could be interested in. So this does require BOMs, which is a little bit of a complication and a challenge for us because it's not third-party verified, but some data is always better than no data at all, and some manufacturers are far more forthcoming with their data, which is very handy. And because our goal is a kind of a weather report for these products, again, this kind of data is good enough for what we're trying to do.
Great. So hi everyone, my name is Michelle Lee. So I'm just going to talk to you a little about the baselines we've been working on for our metric. So in order to make our metric more widely applicable, we've also been establishing baselines where we create basically a fictional product to compare other products against. The data for these fictional products come from institutions such as MIT, European groups, and sometimes other professional organizations. This allows us to compare our products to the same baseline so that there is a consistent standard to objectively judge other products against. So in terms of contractor communication, we found that when talking to contractors, using this data has been useful in effectively communicating the different aspects of products. We're interested in teaming up with Cornell facilities in order to aid them in choosing better, more sustainable products, and look forward to talking with contractors more in the future. As you can see here, the fact that we're even able to say anything about sustainability and the other aspects of our metric helps our clients make better, well-informed decisions. We find Sustainable Minds to be a great resource, and we really look forward to seeing the progression of Sustainable Minds as it gains more tools.
Thank you, Michelle and Justin. So I'd like to just kind of start to wrap up here with the oops, went 2 slides there, apologize. With some of the key learnings that we really noticed that our students have been able to get out of using Sustainable Minds in their designs. This really has helped them to target on a lot of trade study kind of work. We're talking about the development of performance metrics, decision matrices, and even getting into things such as the QFD or House of Quality, where they're able to directly compare some of their engineering characteristics, obviously, with the actual customer attributes in order to justify the kinds of decisions that they're making. Also, just the fact that they have to work quite often with suppliers in order to find out information about their bill of materials, about their manufacturing processes, has helped them to develop skills in supplier communications overall. In fact, the entire exercise, I would say, is a wonderful way to also teach ethics to our students in a way that they are very receptive. Students really do embody the responsibility of the sustainability of their actions, and this becomes even more clear through exercises like this. So I'd like to wrap up by saying basically, not only is the Sustainable Mind a great education tool, but we've been finding it to be a great research tool. And here's a mission statement our students came up with themselves: the value in incorporating Sustainable Minds directly into our research to drive sustainable behavior by empowering consumers with specific, informative, and accurate data about the products they buy. be very difficult in order to do our kind of research without a tool like Sustainable Minds. And so hence students have been finding all different kinds of new ways to make use of it to inform their decisions, whether it be in the building materials, utilities and furnishings, other products like that consumer products product I mentioned, and again, just overall design decisions in the work that they're doing. I'd like to wrap up by adding one last comment in general trends for our students is that today's generation really is making sustainability a priority. To give you an indication, CUSD in 1 year alone had over 1,000 students applying to be a part of this project. Again, making it the largest, most popular student project team on campus. There is that much interest across all the different kinds of disciplines to try to make a real difference in this area. And we're finding that students are selecting their jobs based upon their personal values and not just traditional incentives. Yes, they do care about their salary. They want to do something where they feel that what they're doing has value and they're doing it in the right way. And so they consider sustainability basically a fundamental moral responsibility, and they actively respect those companies that do so as well. And so with that, I'd like to wrap it up and be happy to take any additional questions that you have with regards to any of our products and, of course, the use of Sustainable Minds. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks, Michelle and Justin. I think the three presentations were so diverse and show such a range of application, but really so inspiring, and kind of the way that every faculty person is making these projects their own and exciting students to engage in a big way and really learn to make meaningful decisions. You know, again, it's all about jobs in the economy. How are we going to employ the knowledge workers of the future to grow the economy in a responsible way? And those schools who are training students to go out into the workforce to do that will get hired by the manufacturers who care about doing that and creating a better future. To wrap up on Sustainable Minds, we do have a lot of new educators attending the webcast. I think what's been demonstrated is that it is easy to use. It is in the cloud, so you can collaborate anywhere. Sustainable Minds is often used in distance learning programs, of which Marylhurst is one example. And while it is B2B software, we have not only the ability for faculty and students to start with a 15-day free trial. You can purchase online, but we also have very, very affordable pricing for education, starting at the class size, but thinking about more broader implementation at the department and even at the school level. And so we have packages of educator and student subscriptions, as well as the ability to add training or custom data. We've also been building a curriculum library as different educators have participated in webcasts. They've also contributed their curriculum so that freely available, any other faculty who wants to get started can have a reference curriculum to get started from, and you just need to contact us and we'll really share that with you. So let's turn to the Q&A section of this webcast, and we've received a question that we receive pretty much every time, which is, how much time did you, faculty, spend teaching your students to use the Sustainable Minds software before they started the project? And any of you can answer that question.
I've got an interesting answer to that question. They taught me. So they actually became experts in it before I did. I would say I had a good working knowledge of it, but they became experts faster than I did.
Well, this is Jay Beeks. I can jump in here too. One of the challenges with this project that we set up for these students is that we don't give them a whole lot of information ahead of time. We tell them what the software package is, and we tell them how to get into the software package. But at that point, we pretty much turn it over to them, and we have them develop their group organically, and we require them to figure out how to use the software package. And there are a few questions that come up during the course of the class, but if I can't answer those, I'll refer them directly to Sustainable Minds, and then they get their questions answered directly from the software developer. So my involvement ends up being really not that much. It's one of about 7 or 8 things that we do in this particular course, and I find that I can keep myself busy in other areas without becoming an expert on the software.
Yeah, at St. Louis University we have a similar situation where we find that the most effective use of the time is I'll set aside class time for the students to get on the computer, get up and running, and then I can be around as a resource. And again, it's mostly just the logistics of finding the right material and getting started, and them getting over their own hesitation of using the software. But as my colleagues have experienced, that at that point, then they run with it, and it's very little for me to manage.
Thank you for answering all 3 of you, because oftentimes that's one of the biggest concerns for faculty getting started. Their own reticence about learning software, but I pretty much have seen half the faculty who answer the question say that the students just have no problem the first 30 minutes and they're up and running. I would actually invite any of the 3 of you to comment or ask questions of the other presenters. You've all had a chance to see the other projects in a little bit more detail. What have you learned from looking at these other courses that folks are teaching that you might take away and integrate into your course, or just something that you learned yourself personally that has given you an idea?
Well, this is Jay Beeks again. I was quite interested in the metric or the matrix that was established at Cornell, and coming up with a very simplified score of whether something is more sustainable or less sustainable. And I think that's a trend that we're going in the future. It's a trend beyond eco-labeling, but I see it as being very valuable, and I certainly agree that consumers are going to be much more interested in a more sustainable product than a less sustainable product. It's just that the consumers need to have that minimal amount of education to know something is greener or less green or red before they make a decision. So I applaud Cornell for doing that and coming up with that kind of a simplified scoring system.
Is there anything you would integrate into your course with that idea in mind? Kind of put you on the spot.
I'd have to think about that. We definitely agree with the concept. I think we would be interested in getting some more information as to how they develop their scoring system. I mean, I understand it's fairly simplified, but yeah, I think we would be interested in coming up with something beyond an eco-label, because we do the second course after this course is sustainable marketing, and in sustainable marketing we get into eco-labeling and green labeling, and we get into other aspects of greenwashing. For example, the products are being greenwashed, which means that it's false advertising. They're really not a green product, but there's very few companies out there that are willing to say, well, we're totally unsustainable, so buy from us. So that most companies are going to come up with some way of labeling themselves as being more sustainable than their competitors. But I think perhaps for our marketing course, yeah, that might be very beneficial. I'm not sure about my course, which is Principles of Sustainability, but I do think the marketing course would be interested in that type of scoring system, definitely.
All right, well, that has been an action-packed hour and a lot of content flying by, and even content flying by at an accelerated pace. So I'd like to wrap up and thank each of our presenters for sharing their experiences and their ideas. And for students, Justin and Michelle taking time out of your busy student schedule to show up. And for all of you who attended, thank you for taking time, and we will be in touch, and have a great day.